I see you have a nice DC backdrop there. Are you actually in the Batcave? Is that where
I
you're
am in the
recording from?
Batcave, yes, for
That's
sure.
awesome.
No, I'm
That's
just-
very cool that you have that in
but
your
there's no
house.
giant coin here,
I
so
know you need that.
kind of fail. So, the first question I have is, what was the first thing that interested you in playing a character like Harvey Dent?
Well, I'm human and I'm not an idiot. So those two things were the main factors. I I mean, as an actor, when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I want you to play the district attorney in Gotham who has serious childhood traumas and a history of mental illness, and over the course of the season, we'll see him unravel and fight his demons more and more. He has identity dysmorphia, and his alter ego will begin to emerge, and then ultimately he will side with evil and become the iconic Batman villain Two Face. If someone were to come to me with that proposal, I would say, "Oh yeah, sign me up."
One of the core elements in the series is who killed Bruce Wayne. Did you, as Misha, have a suspicion of who did it? And does Harvey have suspicions of who did it?
At the outset, no idea.
Okay.
Definitely no idea. Um, and and that is frustrating. Like no idea. The Joker's daughter and Batman's son become the primary suspects right off the bat. Um, but I'm dubious about that. And as the season goes on, I I become convinced that they're of their innocence. Um, but that's a uh, they end up being obviously a red herring, and I think the audience knows from the outset that they're not the killers. Um, but we really don't know who it is. And then when we figure out who's behind it, and I'm just going to spoil it here, the Court of Owls, that's actually not a satisfying answer because the Court of Owls is this mysterious, nefarious cabal of kind of quasi-governmental organized crime. We don't know who they are. So the killer, while having a name, is actually technically anonymous, and it's not an individual; it's a collective, and it's a collective that we don't know the faces of. So, um, ferreting that out becomes really the primary directive for the season, and that's all I have to say on the matter.
And kind of like Harvey Dent, the Court of Owls likes to play with coins.
That's right.
Ha- have you been able to master the Harvey Dent coin tricks yet?
You know, I mastery is such a strong word, but I can roll a coin across my knuckles. Ironically, there was a moment in the pilot where the script called for Harvey to roll the coin across his knuckles, and I practiced with a quarter, and and I was like, all right, I got this. I can do this with the quarter. And then on the day of filming, we got to set, and the prop master handed me a coin, which is like
Twice the size.
twice the width of a quarter. And I was like, oh, cool. And I was like, oh, whatever neural networks I formed in figuring out how to roll the quarter, they don't apply to something that's twice the size. It didn't work at all. So ultimately, in the pilot, in the scene where it was scripted that Harvey rolls the coin across his knuckles, we did not roll the coin across the knuckles. And then I did not have occasion to do so again for the rest of the season. So all of that hard work was wasted.
Season two, right?
Season two will be all about the coin rolling across the knuckles.
Awesome. So you
It'll
have a
be done in close up.
you have a huge fan base from Supernatural, obviously. You did a screening of the pilot at a convention recently and brought Tyler with you. Are you hoping your Gotham Knights cast will start joining you on these things?
Yes, I am. I think that'll be great. And I think they will. I can't imagine that the cast of Gotham Knights won't wind up at these conventions with us. Seems like perfect fit. There are cast members from, we started out with these supernatural only conventions that we did for, well over a decade. And we did quite a few of them. But now there are cast members from Walker at those conventions and Walker Independence and from the Winchesters. Um, and Tom Welling has been at the last couple of these conventions that we do. So we're just sort of folding in more and more people who are our friends and colleagues. And when Gotham Knights starts airing, I'm sure that we will have more of the Gotham Knights cast to joining us.
So since you
If they'll have us.
Since you brought up the show, the Winchesters last night brought back a few supernatural favorites. Were you approached to reprise the role of Cass?
I was, yes. But it didn't end up. I was filming Gotham Knights at the time, and the timing just didn't quite work out. So Jensen and I had conversations about it, and if there's a season 2 or beyond for Winchesters, we could certainly figure out how to make that happen.
Is that a role you would like to play again someday if you have time?
Yes, of course. I would love to. Cass is like an old friend. I'd love to see him again.
So you had a background in working in government before. Did that help you in your role in playing a district attorney who might?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it helped me in my role. I never was a politician. I was just someone who aspired to be a politician. But I think it helped in that when I met with the producers and writers of the show on Zoom, and it came up that I had been a White House intern and had political aspirations, I think that they probably thought, well, this is like, he's like almost like the real thing. We should totally cast this guy. So it may have helped. I don't know. It may have helped me get the job. I'm not sure about that.
Is it more fun to play a character who can be kind of two-faced and go from one extreme to another?
Yes, it is. And actually, one of the things that I loved about Castiel on Supernatural was that he had all of these different iterations. Like Castiel primarily was a staunch ally of the Winchesters with a very strong moral compass, somebody who you knew was good. But he was also possessed by Lucifer for 9 episodes. And so I got to play different versions of that character, and that made it fun for me. I would have been bored if I had just played that one character all along, but I think there was like 7 different iterations of Castiel over the course of my tenure on the show. And at no point in the first season of Gotham Knights was I in peril of being bored by the writing that I had, but it was really exciting to be able to play this particular character who had these polar opposites operating within himself.
What's it like to have executive producers like Natalie who will geek out whenever they see you do something Two-Face? Like
it's great. I mean, I have to say, like one of the other things that was really fun about this for me and new when I joined Supernatural, I have to say I loved working on that show. I loved my castmates, and I loved the showrunners, and I still do. But they were a well-oiled machine when I joined. So there wasn't a ton of creative visioning of where the character was going to go or what the arc of the season was going to be. I was the new kid who was plugging into a lot of momentum that already existed on that show. But on this show, we're starting out with the pilot. We had a lot of conversations about where to go with the character of Harvey Dent and what the arc of the season was going to be. And it was really gratifying to be in on those conversations. At one point, I don't know what episode we were on, maybe 2 or 3. I woke up from a dream that was so vivid and so clear. I was like, oh, for sure, that's how Harvey has to become Two-Face in this show. And I called the producers and I was like, Chad, James, hey, this is weird. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do this a lot, but I had a dream last night that seemed to ring a bell. And I explained to them what the dream was. And I'm sure that when I started with like, hey, I had a dream about my character, they were like, oh God, uh, this, please spare us, kid. But I finished explaining what I had dreamt, and they were like, oh my God, that's so great. We have to do that. And so ultimately, the transition from Harvey Dent to Two-Face is very much grounded in it's the dream that I had, which is pretty awesome. And it's a testament to Chad and James and Natalie that they were receptive to that kind of input. And a lot of times, showrunners have so much on their plate, and there's so many curveballs being thrown their way at any given point that they just don't have the bandwidth to be receptive. They already have a writer's room to figure that kind of shit out. So they often don't have the bandwidth to be receptive to stuff coming in from the actor about like, hey, what about this for my character? So it's a testament to these writers and showrunners that they were able to engage in that dialogue with me or placate the prima donna actor that I am by accommodating certain story arcs. But it was gratifying for me.
So I got a question on Twitter. Will Harvey have any of the crazy ties?
Yes,
Okay.
Harvey has a different knot with every suit in every episode. It's a different knot. I mean, he must have spent his entire youth in knot training in the Boy Scouts or something because he has the most convoluted tie knots I've ever seen. It's pretty awesome. I didn't even know that there were like I knew that there were two, like the easy one and the slightly harder one. Turns out there are multifarious tie knots out there.
And are you hoping
And
to event-
I'm going to create a little game with each episode where people have to guess what the name of the tie knot is. And I'm going to be rewarding people who guess correctly.
Are you hoping to be able to wear an outfit that's two different colors?
No, so we, as we were developing the look of Harvey, like sorry, of Two-Face, there were certain things that felt like we had to do. Like we have to have half of his face scarred. Um, there's very iconic images of Two-Face's costume that are almost a little bit clownish with like two different suits sewn together of different colors and different patterning. Um, but we didn't want to throw anything out. Like we wanted to nod to all of the canon existing before us without being necessarily totally beholden to it. So the solution that we came up with for Harvey's Two-Face wardrobe is, I think, perfect. Makes perfect sense. And it visually ties to that image that you have in your head of what Two-Face's costume looks like. But it doesn't look like I'm dressed like a clown.
And I have to ask this just, for the Twitter shares. How long are we going to have to wait to see Harvey Dent shirtless?
I can't remember exactly when I first take off my shirt. I think I'm shirtless. Like I'm shirtless more in this one season of Gotham Knights than I was in 12 seasons of Supernatural. Uh, it kept happening. And I kept wanting to be like, guys, what are you doing? I'm 48. You have guys on the show who are 21, 22. They're the ones that should be taking off their shirts, not me. What are you doing? But sadly, I have lots of shirtless scenes. And I think the first one happens maybe I'm stabbing in the dark. Episode 4, episode 5, something like that. Fairly early on.
And for my last question, we've talked about your huge fan base. Why should they be tuning into Gotham Knights on March 14th and beyond?
Because the show is good. I have a dear friend who watched the pilot with me. I have a little screener who watched the pilot with me and a few other people. And I was like, you know what? I don't this friend happens to be very frank. Like I know they will always say it like it is. And so I was like a little bit dubious because I've got to go promote the show. I've got to tell everybody to watch it and that it's really great. And I don't want my friend in my ear being like, ew, what happened there? So we watched it, and then I was like, okay, cool, let's go outside. Let's go do something else. I don't really want to talk about it. And then a couple hours later, my friend was like, so Misha, about the show. And I was like, oh God, here it comes. And she was like, I, I hate to admit it, but I thought it was going to be terrible, and it was totally awesome. I can't wait to watch the rest of it. So if that friend of mine says that, I feel quite confident that my fans are going to love it.